Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters, sharing proven strategies to help you live a better life right now. And now your host, Marco Salinas.
Welcome back to another episode of Business Innovators Radio. I'm your host, Marco Salinas. Joining me today, I have a very special guest, Mr. Nef Torres. Nef is with a company called People First Employment. And Nef is in the staffing, recruitment, and problem-solving space. He helps business owners in very specific industries, which we will be getting into and we'll be discussing a little bit more of here shortly, to resolve their problems as far as, needing good quality workers in employment. So we'll be learning a little bit more about Nef today, a little bit more about his journey, where he's been. Nef is a long-time veteran of this space. He's been in this space for a long time, but I'll let him share a little bit more of those details with you. And a really cool, sharp young man. And I think you're going to enjoy his story today. So, Nef, welcome to the program, my brother.
Hey, thanks for having me, Marco. I appreciate it. Yeah, I sure hope that I live up to that intro. Great job.
No, you're going to do great, man. Every conversation I've had with you so far, man, you have a lot of passion. You have a lot of love. It's very obvious that everything you're doing, it comes from a very deeply rooted place, deep within your heart, for lack of a better term. I don't mean to sound cheesy or corny, man, but some
I
people really
appreciate
do have that. Some people really do. And I think you're one of those. And so I just want to be able to learn a little bit more about you. Any of our listeners can, receive a lot of value from guys like you, man, because you've been in the game, like I said, for a long time. You have a lot of wisdom, you have a lot of knowledge, and there's a lot of things that I think you can share with our listeners today. So let's start with this. This is usually what the question that I like to start with. You're a business owner, right?
Right.
You're a CEO of this company. You're a founder of this company, right? And so the question that I have is, did a lot of this come from, let's call it your DNA, do you think, to become a self-starter like this, to become a business owner? Were there any, like, signs or clues that maybe you had this kinda, founder CEO gene in your DNA, or was this something that maybe got exposed to you at a young age? Where did all this come from, man? Where did all this drive to be a business owner like this come from?
So that's a great question. And just like, okay, so in my DNA, yes. And the reason being is because I've never really been able to, you know, live within other people's visions, right? So even in school, I wasn't able to sit down for 8 hours a day and talk and not, create relationships with my friends and, be a knucklehead, I guess, right? Like I am, a perfect example of like the DF student that went out and started his own business and is now, operating in this space.
Sure.
So from that perspective, yes, my DNA from a young age, yeah, I just kind of rebelled against a lot of rules that were put around me. And I didn't know why. I mean, it wasn't like I was, purposely trying to make other people upset, but I just didn't understand how I could be myself with other people's restrictions placed on me. Right. And I was always comfortable, you know, doing what I do. And as far as me being in this particular space, it is deeply rooted. My mother she worked for the post office for 20 some odd years before we lost her. And, my earliest memories, I remember walking into her job and, coming up, and maybe my grandma took me there because she had to drop something off for her. And my mom would work the register in the front. And there would always be like this long line of people only at her register, and I didn't understand why, right? I'm a kid and I'm there with my grandmother and we're dropping something off and there's this line of people, right up to the door and the other registers are empty. And there's people standing there ready to serve, but there's no one lining up for them. And what I saw was my mother was reading people's cards, like whatever mail was coming in, correspondence that was coming in, and she was helping them through whether that be them getting their legal documentation to live here in the US, or that'd be a bill or some type of dispute that they were going through and they didn't read English. So my mother was bilingual. She would read this document. They would go on, do the next step, and then come back the very next week to help, to get her help with what the next step was, because they didn't have people at home that could walk them through that.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it at that time. I remember at one point, I am now a teenager. They were told her, stop helping people in this line. You can no longer help people. It's not okay here at the post office." She said, "Okay." So all of a sudden, I'm getting home from school, and there's a line of people outside of my house, and my grandmother's feeding them, and my mom's doing this all for free, right? And she's helping these people. So I'm walking into the house. I'm like, "Mom, who in the heck is this? Like, why do you have these random people at our house?" Right? I'm a teenager. I'm speaking up now. And she's like, "I'm helping them." And my grandmother's feeding them. And I'm like, "Okay, cool." Kind of didn't think anything of it. And I remember when my mom passed away, there was about 600 people at her funeral. And she just worked for the post office, man. And
Yeah.
everyone that was coming up to my mom or to us, the family, and talking to us about my mom, they would say, "Your mom saved us. Your mom helped me get my papers. Your mom helped me with this. She changed our lives."
Mm.
And this is just a lady at the post office. So when I lost her, went kind of nuts in that space because she was such an influence. I had such a great relationship with her.
Yeah.
And then, like, at about 26, 27, it clicked for me that my mother was really building a path for me to be impactful at whatever level I could be impactful at, and really connect with the people that I'm servicing and that I'm serving and help them achieve their objective. And through that, you know, you're always taken care of. Things are always working in your favor. And that's just kind of the way it goes, right? Spreading that love and that good energy into the world. So my sisters are now in the staffing industry. I'm coming home from high school. I'm watching them in the space. And I didn't really think about it, but I kind of got sucked into it. And my journey began. And the coolest thing was I got to help people, achieve their next step within their career. Right. So, hey, I would hear about an opportunity with another client. Let me go ahead and move you from here to there because you're going to get that opportunity you've been working your tail off for. And I'd get people coming back and say, "Man, I just went up. They gave me a $5, $6 raise." So
Yeah.
watching my mother help people helped me understand that I needed to be in a space where I can operate creatively, freely, and be able to do the things that I wanted to do without restrictions to help other individuals reach a better spot in their life. And so in my DNA was the rule breaker, and in my life was this example of amazing, you know,
Servitude.
servitude to the
Yeah.
community. And then watching my father, just be this guy that was like the first one at his office every day. He worked at a warehouse and he clocked in and clocked out every day. And he was the first guy there to make coffee and the last guy there to close the door. And this is like a company of 50 people. And he wasn't even in management, but he was just that reliable. And I remember kind of thinking to myself as I got through my trauma of losing mom, was like, "Hey man, like I have to add to her legacy, and I have to carry it on through my servitude to the community to the best way I can."
Yeah.
And so when it brought me to this space, I fell in love with it. I tried leaving. There was no way I could leave because you just get sucked right back in. Nothing else gave me as much excitement. And then working for other companies, realizing that their interest was in the money, right?
Right.
And
Right.
me, coming from much humbler, places, I just didn't. Money is fine. It's a byproduct of the value you add, right?
Correct.
And so, I started on this journey. I have amazing partners that believed in me and that gave me an opportunity to step into this space and, become CEO, I get right, whatever, right? Just, because that also feels weird for me, man, to say like I'm the CEO of this, like it
Sure.
doesn't resonate with me as much as I'm in the trenches.
Right.
I'm in
Right.
the company's DNA and that, we operate a certain way and we take that to the market. So long-winded answer, but yeah, I knew from the beginning, man. I knew from the beginning that something I was here for a bigger reason, you know?
100%. No, that first of all, Def, let me mention that's exactly what I was looking for, man. I don't want a little short response, man, when you got, something very special and very unique to share, right? You're doing an injustice to everyone by not sharing, those details like that. Cause what you just shared with me about your own mother, I mean, that really touched me, man. And I'm just one person. And so, because I know that people like that are out there, I know they exist. I've encountered them. Granted, not very often. Unfortunately, they're kind of rare. They're little, gems that are out there in the workforce. And it sounds like you're fortunate enough that, obviously you knew a couple of them yourself personally in your mother and your father. And so thank you for sharing that, man. That was really amazing. It really makes a lot of sense to me. Now I have a much better understanding in that one answer of why you are the way that you are, because these things have really
Appreciate
shaped you. These people have really shaped you, right? So
Yeah.
You mentioned something, Nefto, that really resonated with me, which is the fact that you were like, I'll put it in my own words. They try to squeeze you into a little box, but you don't fit in the box, right?
Fit in the
And
box.
so it's like trying to take this little odd shaped thing and put it into a box. It ain't gonna work, right?
An
So,
odd shape is a really good description of my situation.
hey, you
Absolutely.
know what? I think that's a lot of us, man, that are in this space in the self-employment world. So tell me though a little bit more. Can you expand a little bit more on maybe the person that you were before you became a business owner? Can you talk to me a little bit about maybe you could talk a little bit more about, your those difficulties as a student. They were trying to fit you in that box in the classroom. It just wasn't working. Maybe your grades weren't so hot. Doesn't mean you're not smart. It just
Right,
means that, you're just not designed to follow that little structure like everybody else is, right? And then did you
right.
have any other jobs? Like, what kinda things did you do maybe before, or were you just from the jump, were you always a staffing guy? Tell me a little bit about
No,
some.
no, actually, yeah, it's funny because my wife and I always joke about this. My father-in-law always told my wife, like, "I don't know why you're marrying this guy. He can't hold a job." Right? I couldn't like growing up. So really interesting and probably one of the most impactful experiences that I had early on in my life. My sister was working for an organization that did injection molding, and they created, these office chairs that we're sitting on. They would do all the plastic pieces and injection mold those pieces for these types of chairs. And at that time, the ownership there had an R&D space that they worked out of to do all of these new products for different industries. And at that time, they were working for Coca-Cola to create the Sprite bottle that we all see now with the little divots on the inside, right?
Okay. Yep.
And, at the time, my mom, she could not afford the type of clothes I wanted to wear and, buy. And, she had a budget for all of us and we had to stay. So I asked my sister, who was working for that organization, and she was actually a pretty young HR person within that organization. It's when human resources became like something that a company really needed to start considering, right? So they
Got
just grabbed like the smartest person that they thought was within that group that they can mold and that would go out and get them the information. They put her in there, and it was my sister, and she's super intelligent. So she got an opportunity to work with them. And she asked them if I could come in and help them at the R&D department, cleaning up whatever kind of mess. So this
Yep.
is with the ownership. And matter of fact, one of the gentlemen there, he was a consultant for Microsoft when Microsoft was developing all this new technology. So I didn't know any of that. Like I was just going in there to make $13 an hour untaxed so I can go out and buy school clothes.
Yep.
Well, and I'll cite him. His name is Jay Magnus, just an amazing human being and a great mentor for me at that time. And he showed me that you could be different and you can say what you want to say and do what you want to do as long as it's coming in the most authentic way. It's not hurting and it's adding value. And the right people will listen to you, right? It didn't matter where you came from. It didn't matter how you sound, as long as what you were able to do was going to add value to that other individual's world. And I watched him have a very intense conversation with some people out of Microsoft, and you're right, they did that whole thing. And I was sitting in the room, and he basically, he said, "Well, F it, man. If you have such a great answer, why are you calling me? Right? You guys called me to consult for you." And so that kick started something for me. And it let me know that as much as I wasn't willing to be in the box, that as long as I was willing to work at myself and create something of myself, when the time was right, if I could add value, that it would resonate with the right people and it would put me in positions to be successful, and that I didn't have to be like everyone else for me to be able to be successful. And so going into my tougher years, and I sold jewelry, I sold cars. I hated selling cars because I saw people's lives get turned upside down, getting approved for vehicles that they should not have been approved for. That's when like the car business was just upside down. There's a
Yeah.
lot more of a structure to that. Financing has evolved since then, right?
Of
That's a
course.
whole nother ballgame, by the way. But the deal that I saw was, I was learning and I was always around people. And the one thing I knew was like, dude, I can help people and I love being around them. And so no matter how tough things got for me, I always held on to that initial experience I had at the age of 13, which was to always be myself, And and at some point, everything would come together as long as I was working hard to try and figure out my path. And so this in not innately because people would talk about it, right? And it was before, a whole lot of like the motivational speaking would be going on, right? That we have now. We got so many great speakers out there. But, it was before all that. There was a few people, right, that were talking about. And more importantly, I had people next to me that were telling me, you can do anything you want, right? My mom, my dad, the people that believe. And there was like a false sense of like, of course I'm gonna do what I want. My mom just told me, man. Like, so it's
Right.
kind of like naive in that way
Sure.
that the world ended up smacking me in the mouth enough times to show me that this value I thought I was bringing just wasn't enough. And it wasn't enough because maybe I didn't have the right habits attached to it. I wasn't doing the right thing. But case in point is those experiences along the way really helped me kind of string together where I'm at today. And I have an amazing wife right by my side, man. 19 years that I've been with her, and she's
Awesome.
just my rock. And, even when I would stray, she got a chance to meet my mom and knew her for about a year before she passed unexpectedly. And, you know, she would always ground me when I was getting a little bit too out of hand. Right. And she just stuck by me, and she always saw the ability that I had to connect with people, and she always told me, "You just stay in it. Just, stay in staffing. You love that. Everywhere else you go, it's horrible." And I had about 15 jobs. So staffing I'd get a run of like 8, 9 months. Maybe my company lost a client. They'd let me go. They'd bring me back 6 months later because they got a new client. It's kind of the way it happens in this industry.
Yeah.
If you're tied to certain clients. And in the meantime, I'd have a banking job or I'd sell jewelry or I started insurance and legal services and I did all these different things. But all the while, I would stay in situations that were giving me information that I could stack on top of one another, right?
Got you.
So
Yeah.
I was always in a situation that would grow, and either the situation outgrew me, it was something that I couldn't control, or I myself would outgrow that opportunity and say, hey, this is not the right leader to follow. Because the one thing about me is as much as I hate rules and as much as, I'm like, I was in that headspace, right?
Right.
When the right person was around, the right mentor,
Yeah.
I'd lock in and
Sure.
I would be willing to ride to the end of the world with that person because I saw the value that they were adding into my life.
Yeah.
And so just being, I just got lucky a lot of times too, man. Like I shouldn't be in this position. I should be in really bad spots for some of the stuff that, we were doing as young kids that are dumb, but
Sure. Right.
just, having a good foundation, having good people around you, that's uber important and it's not talked about enough, but your support system is crucial to success, right?
Absolutely.
Because you are
Absolutely.
going to experience the ups and downs. So
No,
hope I
great
answered your
answer,
question.
man. Great information. Yeah. And it actually is a perfect segue into the next question that I had for you because what I'm very curious, what kind of response did you get from your closest family members or your close friends or even your wife for that matter when you actually made that transition from I'm working for other people in this space and I'm going to go ahead and switch over and now we're officially like I'm my own boss now. I'm doing my own thing. I'm self-employed officially as a staffing, agency. What kind of response did you get from your loved ones? Did they think you were
Yes.
totally crazy? You know?
Oh, man. We're gonna get into it. There was different responses, right? Everyone that holds a certain spot in your world, right? Like, my dad was like, "What are you doing? You're leaving a six-figure job. Like, what are you doing?" Right? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Look at me. I've been in my company for X amount of years and right? And or you're crazy. And I think a lot of that came from their own fear of me failing, right? Hit from him, right? Is like he was like, dude, like watched you like go through like 15 jobs in your 30 years on this planet and kind of concerned that you're not going to do what you need to do to make that happen. And you're in a good position now. Don't give that up. And, my wife was excited. She was all in. She's always had my back in that essence. And not that no one, none that my dad didn't or that my sisters didn't. Everybody had my back, but everybody had different concerns and different opinions about what I was doing. But I think the overall was, "Yeah, let's see what happens."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I even had, some people near in my space that I knew were like, this is not gonna work.
Yeah.
This
Sure.
guy is totally gonna goof it up. But they also didn't know all the work that I was doing behind closed doors. They also didn't have an understanding of how much passion. See, before I opened up my business, I had a journal that I was writing in since 2011, and I had already accomplished about 75% of what was on that journal.
Got you.
And when I opened in 2018, I had written down in 2015 that I was going to open up people first employment, that I wasn't sure how. It's in my journal, it's written, it's documented. It was part of my vision. I was going to sleep thinking about it, waking up thinking about it, because I knew that I could offer value to not only my clients about how to attract the right personnel, keep the right personnel, and do what they needed to do to be successful with retaining their employees, but also that I could find the right employees and give them a real shot at upgrading their lifestyle through their professional experience, and be able to have dialogue with people that were maybe entering the space and how to be
Yeah.
successful. So I got a lot of different responses from people that I loved. I think the overall undertone was like, this guy's crazy for doing this because he had a good opportunity, but let's see what he can do because I'm equally, I was crazy enough to try it. I think the biggest shift happens internally with self, right?
Yeah.
Because you
Sure.
realize that, yeah, all right, so I started this party. Like I'm in the game, right? Like here we go, doors open, and it's like no safety net.
That's right.
You're in the game. So what are
Right.
you gonna do? Put up or
Right.
shut up?
Right.
And I had to look at myself and go, year one, none of my habits were solid enough for me to be building a business, right? My personal standards of how I was going to live life, from my weight to my spirituality to my commitment to my success, none of that was aligned habitually with what the end goal was set to be. And
Yeah.
so I had a lot of introspection to do, right? And it really, year one was tough, man. And year one, I think some of those people who had that undertone were winning.
Yeah.
They're
Sure.
not,
They're like,
you
we're
know,
gaining some traction here, man. For
right,
demise, because
right,
there's always
right.
some ones that want to cheer on your demise.
Right, right. And you know what? It just switched. I didn't want to fall into that category. I had fallen into that category for so long in my life that, I felt like, I know what I'm capable of, man. And I'm going to put the right habits in place. I'm going to surround myself with the right people and I'm going to
Yeah.
keep growing. And that's where like the whole shift happens. And you go on this journey and it's been an amazing ride and up and down,
Absolutely.
but amazing ride.
That's
Did
awesome,
that
man.
answer your question?
Very much so. Yeah. That's a superb response, matter of fact. But I want to know a little bit more about, that was a few years ago. Let's bring it forward to today. What's it like being the Nef Torres you are today? Maybe you can tell me and our listeners a little bit more about your current business model. Tell us a little bit more about the specific details of the type of businesses that you help, right? And the problems that you solve for them.
Okay, great. Yeah. So People First Employment is now a multi-state operation. We have offices in California and here in Texas, specifically here in San Antonio. That's where I now sit, and I'm here to grow the business in this market. We service the distribution, manufacturing, and call center spaces. And we do everything for our clients, from the entry level roles that need to be filled so that they can run their production, all the way through to C-level executive search. So there's some divisions within my business that will cater to each one of that level of recruitment.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's great because, you know, yeah, I always think to myself, I know that I'm helping people at the beginning stages of their career that maybe one day I'll help at the C-level stage, right? And then that's always a possibility. And so it's kind of cool to watch people go through that process. But, where we are today is, some hardships, right? The economy has an effect on how everyone's kind of moving,
Yeah.
but the optimism that we have for our growth is there. The foundation is there. We help our clients really identify, where they need to be in the market to attract the level of talent that's going to move their business in the direction that they ultimately want to go in. Right. And having dialogue, diagnosing and taking, account of where my clients are, helping them identify where the market is, and then having them rise to the standard that they need to be at to attract the level that they're looking at, because each organization is looking for different things, right?
Yeah.
Some guys are looking for the role players, others are looking for leaders, others are looking for, innovators and creative minds. And so really it's like identifying, what does your business need today? How can I help you today? And then what are you trying to accomplish in the next 3 to 5 years, where I can help you implement certain, you know, tactics for you to help, to help you achieve that within your world, right? And so it's fun because I'm putting together pieces of the puzzle alongside my client. I get to learn a lot about, what their aspirations are, what the organization's vision is, and then also what they're willing to commit to that process, right? And I'm in a space where you could do business with me or you don't have to. There's so many other agencies out there. The cool thing is that because we're in that position, and I don't feel any pressure to tell someone something that they want to hear, but that isn't necessarily going to be good for what they're trying to achieve, right? So
Sure.
very open, upfront dialogue and honest and kind of, hey, we got to get into the mud about certain things so that we can clean it up and get you where you want to go. And what would it feel like? And what would it be like if you can achieve that, Mr. Client? You know, and what are you willing to do to make that happen? Right. And so making sure that what you want to see and what you need to do to see that is also aligned with what you're willing to do and put on the table to achieve that,
Definitely.
and so that's what we do. In addition to, I payroll for my clients, right? So you got people out there, you got organizations that are, they're maybe their turnaround on their monies, 3 weeks, a month. I can payroll some of them, give them some cash flow, kind of relieve some of that cash flow stress and put them in positions where they can, put resources in different places also, because now I've freed up some cash flow. I help mitigate them from workers' comp risks. I help mitigate them from any type of class action lawsuits due to time and attendance. I'm sorry, time and lunch breaks, right? Like
Okay.
there's so much that we can add to our clients' world and really put in play for them to protect them from, making a mistake that, number one, they shouldn't be making, because we're servicing people, right?
Yeah.
And people help our businesses grow.
Sure.
So we shouldn't be making them. So these are the laws around that. Let's protect you from it. Hey, if you got someone you got to let go, or you have someone that got injured, I come in and I do all the reports and I help you with that process, and we manage and mitigate that. So using a staffing agency is great, but using a staffing agency the right way
Yeah.
is impactful to your business,
That's the
right?
game changer right there. Yeah.
That's it. Being intentional with the partnership.
And I would imagine, Neff, that having someone in your corner that's been doing it for a while probably helps, right? Tell us how long you've been in this space total. How many years?
Right. So I've been in the industry for a little bit over 16 years now. I'm going on my 17th year. I think I got to go back and do some math somewhere in there. Right. And collectively around me, right, I have people that have been in the game for much longer. And so my partner's been in the game for 30 plus years. She's managed
Man.
some of the biggest organizations, some of the biggest divisions for organizations that are household names in the staffing industry. Right. And
Wow.
so,
Yep.
you know, in addition to that, when we hire on recruiters, everyone needs to be seasoned, professional, right? They need to understand the dynamics of their relationship with our clients and our associates alike, and how to achieve, a successful fill for our clients, right? And so
Yeah.
we coach individuals on that. We really put, I've been in the game for so long, and I've been a part of these staffing agencies that really commoditize what we do, right? And so it's just a mill, right? They don't
Right.
they don't
Right.
stand up to their client, don't tell their client, hey, listen, this is what we got to do so that you can get some retention. And
Right.
maybe for some businesses, the ups and downs and ebbs and flows of their business, they require some of that flexibility, right? And associates are told going into it, hey, this is kind of what you're going to experience at this job site, right? But
Sure.
for where we are today in our economy, the benefit of partnering with an agency like myself, or like our agency, and the ability to partner with individuals that truly understand, how to be successful in retention and creating culture, right? And putting people not only to work, but keeping them there so that you can really see the benefits over time, right? Because it creates efficiencies, cultures within your business, and dynamics that really fortify the ecosystem and
Sure.
give you an opportunity to build with your team. In these times, economically, where we sit,
Yep.
uber
Yeah.
important to partner. If it's not me, go find yourself another agency that you resonate with their message and that it feels like they're gonna be able to offer you, the utmost expertise about the objectives you're trying to reach. Do that. So whether it's
Yeah.
us or anything else, I encourage organizations that find themselves having trouble with their staff to
Yep.
really partner with a forward-thinking agency, not just one that wants to charge them and be out, but one that wants to partner and get in that mud with them to really, clean it up. And you can leverage the resources that a staffing agency has access to in a really great way if that's what your business needs.
Sure. Man, Nef, everything you've shared so far, man, is amazing, dude. Your journey is so impressive, man. And I mean, almost 17 years in this industry that's a long time. I mean, you're pushing 20 years total. And so it's no wonder that you know what you know, that you've been as successful as you have. And I think I can only imagine what the future looks like for you, man. I mean, it's definitely for the taking, no question about it. I've got a couple of last final questions here for you as we wind down. We're going to kind of switch over to a little bit more of a lighter tone here as we finish up. I'm curious. Obviously, you're always on the go with work, man. You're hustle mode, you're in grind mode. This is such a big part of your life, but I'm certain that from time to time, you do take a moment to recharge. And so my question is, what are your hobbies, man? What does your non-business time look like, and who do you typically spend that with?
Oh, man, that's my babies, my wife. Yeah, that's my recharge. It's funny this week, you and I had a conversation prior to the recording here around, entrepreneurship and, going down this journey, you really have to take care of yourself, right? And
Yeah,
so, like, I have a set of habits that I do every morning. So I wake up, I pray, I work out, I meditate, I write in a journal, and I read a little bit, or I play brain games, or I do something to stimulate the mind. And that's every single morning, Monday through Sunday, right? I
gotcha.
don't take any days off.
Yeah,
And that really aligns me with myself, my purpose, being intentional. I get a lot accomplished in the morning, so it's easy for me to step in and accomplish things at work.
sure.
It's easy for me to be a great dad because I got all this energy that I've kicked in and be a supportive husband to my wife and be there for her. But it's my family, man. They recharge me. They keep me grounded. And truthfully, my children and at the age that they're at right now, they are the most important thing I wake up, not thing, but they're the most important pillar in my life that, I have to feed into and make sure that I'm available to them because they're going to be the biggest, most impactful part of my existence in my
Yeah,
eyes. Right? Whatever
sure.
I do with the business, it's beautiful. I have a great time with it. It's a great industry, but like I recharge through my children. So we do a lot, especially now that we're here in San Antonio, just kind of traveling the city, seeing all the things that we have going on, all the free, cool little events that they do for children. Like San Antonio is beautiful that way. It has so much to offer young families. And so I recharge like that. And then I'm back at it on Sunday night. I get myself prepared and I'm back at it. I've been taking up golf lately. So I've been doing that because I can't play basketball. Basketball is a young guy's game and it's injury prone attached to it, right? But I've been playing basketball my whole life. So that's like the competitive edge, right?
Yeah,
And like now I'm golfing, man, and I love it. I love it. And so, I've gotten hooked on that. So those are the ways I recharge. And then, I have a cigar. I have a nice scotch from time to time, right?
yeah.
And just try to keep it loose to the best I can. I'm pretty dialed in, dude. So
Hey,
it's hard for me to like loosen it up and be light in a lot of spaces because I got like all these, so
yeah,
I had to scale it back. The kids
sure.
want a fun dad. They don't want this, you know what I mean? They want,
Right,
you know,
right.
so
Yep.
that's how I do it, brother. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, because I think at the end of the day, we've got all these things in our mind. We're over here trying to conquer the world, but the kids are just like, I just want my dad's attention, man. Like
That's it.
I just wanna hang out with daddy, right? They're not concerned with all that stuff, and so we have to be able to turn that off and switch over into that role, into that mode, and sometimes we gotta be able to do it, like, on a dime, right? Even
Right.
though even though you've got like, if they could see it, they'd see you carrying, like, this enormous load on your back, right? But sometimes you gotta take that load, set it down for a moment, take care of your family business and tell yourself, I can go back to that. I can pick that up later. But right
Right.
now, this is where my priorities at. So
Absolutely.
that's a
Absolutely.
beautiful thing, man. That is a beautiful thing. And I appreciate you sharing that, and it sounds like you got a really amazing, beautiful family setup and structure. And I think that's also very key and vital to our success potential is having that support system like that, which you have. So that's
Right.
enormous. That's huge. Last
Yeah.
question for you, Neff, and then we'll wrap up. And this one's a little bit deep, but I just want to know, like, if you could go back into time, if you had a DeLorean and you could go back to the very beginning of the process, is there something that maybe you could tell yourself, like one piece of advice that you could go back and say, look, man, I'm a few years ahead and I just got one thing I got to tell you. Make sure you do X. What would that one piece of advice be that you would tell your earlier version of yourself, knowing what you know now, knowing what you know today?
I have a couple things to tell my younger self.
Okay, share it, bro. Share it.
I would say number one is to enjoy the process and the journey and to not be so dialed in, because even up until last year, I really just said, okay, I'm gonna do the work and I'm gonna let go of the results. And I'm gonna allow for things to be what they are and work through those things, right? And not take it to heart when things don't go my way and not be discouraged and not have the highs and lows. In the way that I would tell myself that I could achieve this and that if I can put this into play, success would have been reached a lot faster. And I now, whatever the case, right? Hindsight, be disciplined and be intentional with my time, be disciplined and be intentional with every conversation I have. And so, having put these habits into play that I execute on a daily basis, again, align me and make me intentional for the rest of my day. Right. And even though I have rough days, like there's days, man, that I can't focus worth anything. I'm just
Sure.
hard. On
Right.
those days, you know, it's easy for me to go back to my habits or take a walk, regroup, restart, get right back in. Right. And so, like, just kind of being able to pick up and understand where I'm at and give myself that grace that it's not going to be a linear climb and that I will have ups and downs. But as long as I stay true to who I am and I keep focused on why I'm doing what I'm doing, that I will always come back to the right decision. I will always come back to the right opportunity. Everything is always going to work in the right favor, in my favor, right? In my vision's favor, if you will.
Sure. Definitely. That's huge, man. Yeah, no, I think that is you dropped some big wisdom bombs on us in this conversation. You dropped some big golden nuggets for us today. And everything you shared, man, was like I said, it was really amazing. And so again, I can't thank you enough, Net, for joining me today on the podcast, for sharing parts of your journey, for being very real, man, very transparent about a lot of things. You and I, as you mentioned, we've talked a lot about how it's not always rosy, man, this path that we're on. But we hang on because in the bigger picture, the opportunity is colossal. And this is really what we're after, right? We're really after an opportunity to live in a way eventually somewhere down the line that is drastically different than what everybody else is doing, right?
Right.
With immense amounts of freedom, with immense amounts of flexibility, with options, with this, with that. So we go through this now so that tomorrow we can have those options, right? And so
Right.
this is really what we're after, man. You've got these cool little posters behind you that says sacrifice, persistence, and success. And I
Yeah,
mean,
man.
that just about rounds out the whole conversation right there, man. So,
That's it.
so yeah,
There's
no,
one poem. It's like it's a poem that I suggest everyone that's on this journey really should have somewhere up in their office. And I'll kind of show you really quick here. I
please.
have it there. It sits up there. There's a mirror right there. And so most people would look at the mirror first and go like, why do you have a mirror? It serves its purpose, right? Make sure I don't have anything on my face before meeting, things of that nature. But the poem up top, it's the man in the glass, right? And the man in the glass, and I'm not sure if you've heard it, read it in the past, but
Can you remind me? Can you refresh me?
oh yeah, man. So I'll read it for you really quick. All right.
There we go.
When you
Let's do it.
when you get what you want in your struggle for self and the world makes you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it isn't your father or mother or wife whose judgment upon you must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back from the glass. He's the fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you clear to the end. And you've passed your most difficult, dangerous test if the man in the glass is your friend. You may fool the whole world down a pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass.
Dang, man.
Go get it. Go get it, baby.
Amen to that, brother. Nef, thank you so much, bro. Thank you again for your time today. It's been a real pleasure and a real honor having you on.
Thank you, brother. Pleasure's all mine. Appreciate you, bro. You take care, huh?
All righty. And that about does it for another episode of Business Innovators Radio. We'll catch you here next time.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Podcast with Marco Salinas. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry innovators and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.